Welcome, everyone, to a very special deep dive edition of Leading Edge AI Radio. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here with us today.
It's great to be here.
Before we jump into well, I'm looking at a massive stack of research sitting on the desk right now, but before we get into that, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Leading Edge Fiber and Recycle.
They're doing great work.
They really are. And just as our sponsor is out there doing the hard, essential work of recycling physical infrastructure to build a more sustainable future, today's deep dive is really about recycling our outdated ideas.
Welcome to the deep dive. If you were listening to this right now, you're the kind of person who wants to stay ahead of the curve.
Absolutely.
You want the thorough insights, the structural shifts, the stuff that actually matters without the overwhelming information overload that usually comes with it. And today we are curating a highly specific exploration just for you.
Yeah, we have a really great stack to go through today.
We really do. So our mission today, we are mapping the 2026 corporate landscape. And we're looking at this trifecta of business survival. So that's the 2026 content marketing trends, the absolute necessity of executive personal branding, and the B2B sales tools required to actually cut through the noise and close the deal.
And when you look across all these diverse sources we have, a very clear, almost unavoidable overarching theme starts to emerge.
Right.
Because we have data from the Content Marketing Institute. We have academic studies on how AI impacts our actual brain development from ARC6, reports on B2B sales stacks, and insights on organizational culture.
It's a lot of ground to cover.
It is. But the thread connecting all of this is the intense tension between artificial efficiency and authentic human connection.
Yeah.
We are building systems to do our jobs much, much faster. But in doing so, we are fundamentally altering how humans trust each other in a business setting.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the marketing landscape. Looking at the predictions for this year, the consensus from the industry experts seems to be that AI is no longer a novelty.
Not at all.
It's not a shiny new toy you play with to, write a funny email on a Friday afternoon. It is the infrastructure now.
Yeah, it's baked into everything.
Right. And I saw the term agentic workflows mentioned constantly in our notes. What does that actually look like in practice for the listeners day to day?
So it is a fundamental operational shift. Up until recently, we were in the prompt and generate phase.
Like using ChatGPT.
Exactly. You asked an AI to write a blog post, it wrote it, and you published it. But an agentic workflow is completely different. Think of it like a digital assembly line where AI agents are actually talking to each other without your input at all.
Wow.
Yeah, you might use a platform like NAN or Google's Opal to set up a system where one AI agent monitors industry news, hands a relevant topic to a second agent that drafts a research report, which hands it to a third agent that formats it into a slide deck, and a fourth agent that emails it to your sales team.
That is wild.
It's autonomous orchestration.
It's literally an entire invisible workforce operating in the background.
Completely invisible.
But if every company has this invisible workforce generating endless amounts of content, how does anyone actually buy anything? I mean, how does a buyer sift through that?
What's fascinating here is how this changes the buyer's journey entirely. Because buyers are overwhelmed by that exact flood of content. They are deploying their own AI.
Fighting fire with fire.
Exactly. We are seeing the rise of autonomous buyer bots. So imagine a procurement manager at a mid-sized company. Instead of going to Google, searching for a new software vendor, reading 5 different websites, and booking demos.
Which takes hours.
Right. Instead, they just tell their internal large language model, their custom AI, to find the best vendor that fits their specific budget and tech stack.
Wait, so the buyer's AI is literally doing the shopping?
Yeah.
They are skipping the brand's website completely.
Completely. The two humans involved in the transaction might not even interact until the final stage.
That is crazy.
It is. So the new mandate for brands is that you actually have to train the public-facing AI models to be your sales reps. If you don't inject your case studies, your impact metrics, and your specific objection handling directly into the training data of these massive language models, the AI will just recommend your competitor to the buyer's bot.
Because it doesn't know you exist.
Right. You are no longer just marketing to humans. You are negotiating with an algorithm.
You're optimizing for an algorithm that talks to your customer. That feels so dystopian, but it makes perfect sense.
It's the new reality.
But here is the ironic countertrend to all of this automation, because we are hitting what one of the experts in our sources called the algorithmic landfill.
Such a great term.
It really is just this absolute mountain of perfectly average, perfectly optimized AI content.
Mm.
Because of that, raw human authenticity is now at an absolute premium. There was this detail in the marketing report about the fall of the M dash that I found hilarious.
It is such a brilliant micro-level observation of human psychology.
Right. So the M dash, that long dash writers love to use for a dramatic pause or an aside, is suddenly being avoided like the plague.
People are terrified of it.
They really are. And marketers are ditching it entirely. They are replacing it with simpler punctuation, just standard commas and periods, simply because large language models tend to over-index on using M dashes to sound conversational.
Yeah, the AI loves an M dash.
So the M dash has literally become a marker of AI digital drivel. Humans are dumbing down their own grammar just to prove to the reader that a real breathing human wrote the text.
It highlights this incredible desperation to signal our humanity in a sea of synthetic text. We are looking for any telltale sign of a pulse. And if we connect this to the bigger picture of how leaders are responding, it perfectly explains the massive pivot toward video-first strategies. 2026 is being dubbed the year of the founder brand.
Makes sense. Text is cheap now.
Text can be faked instantly. Video, especially unscripted, long-form video, is incredibly difficult to fake authentically at scale. So executives are being advised to just sit down and record 1 hour of raw conversation a month. That raw footage feeds the algorithms with fresh, uniquely human perspectives that a text prompt simply cannot generate.
Which is the perfect bridge into our next major theme, executive personal branding. Because as the sources point out, when we talk about a founder brand, we aren't talking about becoming a viral influencer doing trendy dances on social media.
No, definitely not.
We are looking at insights curated for a B2B environment. And in that world, personal branding is the ultimate business mode. It is about establishing deep, unshakable trust.
When buyers are surrounded by automated sales outreach, and they know the blog posts were written by agents and the emails were drafted by algorithms, the reputation of the company's leadership becomes the tiebreaker.
People still fundamentally buy from people.
Always. They want to know how the leadership thinks, how they navigate crises, and what their core values are before they ever sign a six-figure contract.
I remember seeing something in our notes about UX Studio that illustrates this perfectly. The CEO, David Pastor, didn't just write a generic post about leadership. He did a TEDx talk where he laid out all the internal workings of his company.
It was a very transparent talk.
Very transparent. He talked about bottom-up decision-making and completely transparent salaries. For the listener, transparent salaries means everyone in the company knows exactly what everyone else makes.
Which is a massive deal.
That is terrifying for a traditional CEO to admit publicly.
It is incredibly vulnerable. But that vulnerability is exactly what builds the moat. A traditional CEO might look at a TEDx talk like that and think it's just an ego boost, a vanity project. But the data from the Copyfolio case study shows the ROI was massive and tangible.
It really was.
That single, highly vulnerable presentation directly led to more than 50 new hires for his company. 50 top-tier candidates specifically brought up that talk during their interviews. It wasn't just marketing. It was their strongest operational recruitment tool.
So how does a leader actually execute that? If you're listening to this and you realize you need to step out from behind the corporate logo, where do you start? Because the sources outline a few massive traps people fall into.
The foundation, according to the experts, is establishing a digital home base. This could be a highly optimized LinkedIn profile, or ideally, a personal website that you control completely.
Right.
But the trap most executives fall into is treating that home base like a broadcast tower instead of a living room. The most sustainable strategy is to turn internal insights into external content pillars.
Meaning what, exactly?
You take the difficult concepts you just discussed in a private all-hands meeting or the real-world friction from a strategic planning session, and you adapt those into your public narrative. It showcases your actual working style, rather than a polished, PR-approved fantasy.
But the mistakes are so easy to make. The sources highlighted 3 big ones. Number 1 is ghosting. You get really excited, you post your thoughts every day for a week, and then things get busy and you disappear for 3 months. That kills trust.
Yeah, consistency is key.
Number 2 is just shouting into the void. You publish your thoughts but never reply to a single comment. And number 3, which ties right back to our AI discussion, is fully delegating your voice. Either handing your entire profile over to a PR agency or relying entirely on an AI coach like Brandy to write everything for you.
You can use these tools to brainstorm, but the insights have to come from your actual brain. The authenticity has to be the core. And the way a leader presents their vision externally has a profound mirror effect internally on the organizational culture itself. Let me pull up the numbers from that study in the International Research Journal of Education and Technology.
Oh, this was fascinating.
They analyzed how different leadership styles impact corporate culture, and the contrast is stark. Let's look at transactional leadership. That's the traditional reward and punishment, highly metric-driven approach.
That's the style most legacy companies still use, right?
Yeah,
Hit your quota, get a bonus, miss it, get put on a performance plan.
exactly that. The study found that transactional leadership does actually yield a 40.9% higher efficiency rate in the short term.
Which sounds great to a board of directors.
It does, but it comes with a massive hidden cost. It causes employee exhaustion to spike by 21.8%. It literally drives efficiency by burning the human capital to the ground. Now, contrast that with transformational leadership, which is built on inspiring employees through a transparent, shared vision. The stats for transformational leadership show it drives a 43.7% higher engagement rate across the board.
And when they surveyed the employees, 40% of them said a shared vision was the single most critical factor they valued in leadership, which aligns so perfectly with what we just talked about with executive branding.
Exactly the same principle.
If you are out there actively sharing your company's vision and your personal philosophy, you are practicing transformational leadership out in the open. It engages your internal team just as much, if not more, than your external buyers.
You build the brand, you establish the trust, you engage your team, but eventually all of that marketing and reputation building has to actually convert into capital. The rubber has to meet the road. Which brings us to the operational side of the business.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because you can have the most authentic founder brand in the world, and you can have autonomous AI bots sending you leads all day long. But if your B2B sales tools are a fragmented mess, you are just leaking money.
Everywhere.
I was looking at that ratio guide to B2B sales tools, and they highlight this massive epidemic of stack bloat. They found that lower performing sales teams are losing an average of 5% in annual revenue just due to manual quoting inefficiencies. Just think about that. 5% of your total revenue completely gone just because your quoting software doesn't talk to your CRM correctly.
It is a staggering loss of capital due to pure administrative friction. And when you look at how the ratio guide breaks down the sales lifecycle, you start to see exactly where the system breaks. They look at 5 distinct stages.
Right.
Stage 1 is lead generation, which is thoroughly dominated by foundational CRMs like HubSpot and Salesforce. They do a great job of centralizing the initial pipeline. But then you move to stage 2, which is quoting and proposal management.
This is where it starts to get complicated. You have tools like Proposify, PandaDoc, and GetAccept. And we are seeing this massive trend toward digital sales rooms. Can you break down what that actually means for the listener?
Think of a digital sales room like a personalized, secure VIP lounge for your buyer. Instead of sending an email with a heavy PDF attachment that they have to download and a separate link to a spreadsheet for pricing, you send them one secure link.
Much cleaner.
So much cleaner. Inside that digital room, they see a personalized video greeting from you, the interactive pricing tables where they can adjust quantities themselves, the legal terms, and a chat box to ask questions. It keeps the buyer engaged in a single environment.
Which sounds amazing, but then the friction hits again when they actually want to buy. Because after the quoting stage, you hit stage 3, closing and signature, which is usually a separate tool like DocuSign.
Yeah.
And then stage 4, billing and payments, which is handled by yet another platform like Stripe or Chargebee or Recurly. And finally, stage 5, renewal and upsell, where platforms like Gainsight or Tatango use AI to monitor the account's health to prevent churn.
You hear that list, and it sounds like you have a specialized, best-in-class tool for every single step. But the ratio guide points out the fatal flaw of this approach, which is fragmentation.
There are just too many moving parts.
Think about the cognitive load on the buyer and the administrative load on your team. Your data bounces from Salesforce to PandaDoc. The buyer agrees, so someone on your team has to manually push that data to DocuSign. The buyer signs it. Then your finance team has to manually set up the subscription in Stripe. It is exhausting.
And the solution they propose isn't just to buy another integration tool, it's to move toward unified platforms, specifically highlighting tools like Ratio Boost.
Yes, consolidation.
The whole point is to merge quoting, signature, and billing into one single checkout experience. So the buyer sees the quote, reviews the legal terms, signs the document, and inputs their credit card, or chooses a buy now, pay later financing option, all on the exact same screen.
The consolidation of that experience is critical. It acts as a cohesive closing layer. And the financial results of removing that friction are profound. The sources share a case study of a team that ripped out their fragmented stack. They got rid of PandaDoc and DocuSign and replaced them with a unified ratio checkout.
And what happened?
The result was 2 to 3 times ARR growth, a 20 to 30% boost in their close rates, and a 25% increase in their average selling price.
Just from changing the software they use to close the deal.
Because they remove the friction that gives buyers time to second-guess the purchase. Streamlining your sales stack isn't just an IT upgrade. It is a critical financial imperative. The data from the sources shows that 22.2% of fast-growing SaaS companies lose over 10% of their annual recurring revenue strictly to late payments, defaults, or failed billing processes caused by fragmented systems.
That is brutal.
Unifying the tool stack plugs those leaks.
Okay, so let's pause and look at the picture we've painted of the 2026 landscape. We have agentic workflows writing and distributing our marketing. We have autonomous bots buying our products. And we have unified platforms completely automating the quoting, sales, and billing cycle. It is the peak of frictionless business.
It is incredibly ruthlessly efficient. But this raises an important question, perhaps the most important question of this entire deep dive. If we automate the execution of our marketing, our outreach, and our sales stacks to this degree, what happens to our actual foundational human skills?
Right.
If the AI does the heavy lifting, do our own cognitive muscles start to atrophy?
Oh, this is the part of the deep dive that completely blew my mind. Because I use AI every day to draft emails or summarize long PDFs, and I always assumed it was just making me smarter and faster.
Most people do.
But we have a study here from Arcarsiv titled How AI Impacts Skill Formation. The researchers wanted to know what actually happens to our brains when we use AI to learn a complex new task on the job. So they set up an experiment where novice software developers had to learn a brand new, highly complex programming library called Python Trio.
And for our listeners who aren't developers, learning an asynchronous library like Python Trio is incredibly difficult.
Can you give us an analogy for that?
Think of asynchronous programming like a chef cooking a complex meal. Instead of waiting for the water to boil before you start chopping the onions, you design a system where multiple tasks happen concurrently so the whole kitchen runs faster.
So it's not a step-by-step recipe. You have to understand the whole flow.
Exactly. It requires a deep, fundamental understanding of how the system works.
Hmm.
In the experiment, one group was given an AI coding assistant to help them learn it, and the control group had no AI help at all. They just had the standard manuals.
You would naturally assume the AI group would completely crush the control group. They had a digital tutor right there on their screen. But the results are genuinely terrifying. Wait, the AI group actually performed worse, right?
Significantly worse. The researchers found that using the AI assistants caused a 17% drop in the participants' quiz scores regarding their comprehension of the task.
Wow.
In an academic setting, that is the equivalent of dropping almost 2 full letter grades. Their conceptual understanding, their ability to read the code they had just written, and crucially, their ability to debug and fix errors were severely impaired compared to the group that had to struggle through the problem manually.
But surely they were faster. Even if they didn't learn as much, the AI must have saved them time.
Nope. The task completion time between the two groups was statistically identical.
No way.
Yes. And when the researchers went back and reviewed the screen recordings to figure out why, they found that participants in the AI group spent up to 11 minutes at a time just sitting there, trying to compose the perfect query to ask the AI to do the work for them.
11 minutes just writing the prompt? That is the trap we all fall into. I've spent 20 minutes trying to get an AI to format an Excel spreadsheet when I could have just typed it out manually in 5. Why does this happen?
The researchers identified 6 distinct AI interaction patterns during the study, and they perfectly illustrate the danger of cognitive offloading. The low-scoring behaviors were characterized by a pattern they called generation then comprehension.
Meaning they ask for the answer first?
Yes. This is where the user just asks the AI to generate the final output, write this code, or write this strategy document, and then the human tries to reverse engineer an understanding of it after the fact. The brain doesn't actually absorb the knowledge.
Because you skipped the struggle of building it from scratch.
Precisely. The participants who maintain their skill development used a different pattern. They used conceptual inquiry. They only asked the AI to explain the abstract concepts, but they forced themselves to write the actual code.
That makes total sense.
The vital takeaway for you, the listener, is the researcher's conclusion. AI must be treated as an exoskeleton, not a shortcut. An exoskeleton can amplify your physical strength, but if you rely on it to do the actual walking for you, your own muscles will eventually atrophy. You lose the base competence required to actually supervise the automated output you're generating.
That exoskeleton analogy is so perfect. And if you zoom out, human resources departments are dealing with the fallout of this exact skill atrophy right now. We have data from the AMS Talent Blueprint and the IDC MarketScape reports, and they show that the role of the CHRO, the Chief Human Resources Officer, is being completely upended.
Hiring is a mess right now.
If you've applied for a job recently, you've probably felt this. Companies are seeing a 3x increase in job applications simply because candidates are using AI tools to spam perfectly tailored resumes to hundreds of jobs a day.
It's eroding trust on both sides of the hiring equation. Candidates use AI to apply, so companies use AI filters to reject them, which completely breaks the human social contract of hiring. You have algorithms rejecting algorithms.
Exactly. So to combat this, the IDC report notes that leading organizations are being forced to move toward what they call human-first digital workplaces. They are realizing that deploying the best tech stack isn't enough. You have to actively manage the human experience of interacting with that technology.
And that changes how they measure success.
Yeah, they are fundamentally changing the metrics. For decades, IT departments used SLAs, service level agreements, which basically just measure is the server turned on, is the software running. Now they are moving toward XLAs, which are experience level agreements. XLAs actually measure employee sentiment, cognitive load, and whether the technology is causing burnout.
It's a necessary evolution to protect the workforce. We see a brilliant practical application of this in the Freshfields Responsible Business Report. They recognize that as AI takes over the transactional, repetitive work, deep human connection becomes the premium, irreplaceable skill.
So what did they do?
Well, alongside rolling out an internal AI academy, they instituted mandatory, cross-generational mentoring programs. They are intentionally bringing together junior employees and senior partners across different geographies to have candid, unstructured conversations.
That's brilliant.
It forces the kind of friction and relationship building that algorithms simply cannot replicate, ensuring the culture remains deeply human.
So what does this all mean? We have covered a massive amount of ground today looking at the forces shaping this year. To thrive in the corporate landscape of 2026, the mandate for you is dual-tracked.
You have to walk a fine line.
You really do. On one hand, you absolutely must leverage AI for orchestration. You need agentic workflows to stay competitive in marketing, and you need to brutally consolidate your B2B sales tools into unified checkout experiences to stop revenue from leaking out of your pipeline. But on the exact same hand, you have to fiercely protect your human authenticity.
That's your moat.
You need to cultivate your executive brand by sharing your unique, vulnerable vision, not by outsourcing your voice. And above all, you have to protect your hard-earned cognitive skills from atrophying in the face of easy automation.
The technological systems are becoming fully automated, but true leadership and deep expertise remain inherently human. And as we always say on this show, knowledge is only valuable when it's applied. So take a hard look at your own daily workflows this week. Look at your tech stack and your digital footprint. Are you using AI as an exoskeleton to enhance your existing expertise? Or are you using it as a shortcut that is quietly, slowly replacing your underlying competence?
It is arguably the most important question you can ask yourself right now, and I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as you go about your day. We have spent almost this entire deep dive looking at how to use technology to remove friction. We want to speed up the sales cycle, eliminate manual quoting, and automate content delivery.
Make everything smooth.
Right. But based on what we just learned about how human skills literally degrade without a cognitive challenge, what if valuable friction becomes the new gold standard? What if the struggle of learning a complex topic without an AI cheat sheet, the vulnerability of standing on a stage without a teleprompter, or the sheer agonizing effort of writing a thoughtful strategy document purely from your own mind becomes the ultimate luxury status symbol in the corporate world of tomorrow? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.